with the emergence of mobile money in the Kenyan market, mobile money lending has become very critical for the economy. I'm here with Shivani Sirora, the founder and CEO of Tala Mobile Technologies. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
As well as the regional manager for East Africa for Tala, Rose Muturi. Thank you so much for being with us. All right, we'll start with Shivani. How are you? And maybe you can tell us how you founded Tala and why it was important for you, and what needs you found in the market, especially when you came to the East African market.
So the reason I started Tala was I discovered a problem that I was obsessed with solving, and I felt like someone had to solve it. And it really started from this place of believing in people. And really realizing that there were billions of people around the world that were being overlooked and were not trusted. And so my background before starting Tala was working at the UN Population Fund. I worked across 9 different countries in West Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. And I ended up interviewing over 3,500 people in person over about 3.5 years. And really got to understand people at a very individual level. And I understood, how they made financial decisions, how much money they made, how much money they spent, what the inflows and outflows of capital were throughout the system. And I realized that people were really lacking in financial access. They didn't feel like they had choices, and they didn't really feel like they had control over their financial lives. And so I started the company in order to find a way to prove that these people were trustworthy and creditworthy, and that they really deserved credit just like the rest of us. And what was the data that we could use to actually prove their capacity? And so that was the founding story.
Mm-hmm. How much did you start with?
Not very much. I started with my savings, and I was working full time. So I learned how to code and developed the prototype, and I used my savings to test our models. But then really in 2014, we got funded and we developed the Android application that currently exists today and got going.
All right, we've seen that you've gotten a couple of more fundings coming up. How do you do that? How do you do that with other companies coming up who are doing almost the same thing you're doing? How do you convince investors to invest with you?
I think it really comes from a place that we're a mission-driven technology company. And so I think what makes us the experts in this space is really the fact that we're always willing to constantly learn. Right? And that keeps our first mover advantage. And I think that investors and customers and other stakeholders really see that in us, is that we are at the forefront of engineering, at the forefront of data science, but we're also at the forefront of really understanding customers and doing user research constantly, which is really driving the innovation.
All right. The major question that people ask is what's your credit worthiness? How do you get to the bottom of it? And of course, this is unsecured lending. How do you deal with so many, I don't know that there are many or small, but non-performing loans or non-performing lending? How do you work around that?
So the first piece is, in terms of the non-performing loans, our repayment rates are actually above 92%. And so in that sense, we have a very small number of customers that are kind of having difficulty repaying, or that may not be good borrowers, right? And that's really our job as a company, is to assess who are those individuals? And so over time, we've constantly gotten better and better and better at not only developing models that identify individuals, but also then understand their capacity better so that we can make sure that we're not over-indebting them.
So for you, Rose, maybe you could tell us what are the mobile money trends for lending you've seen in Kenya so far?
Well, it's become a very interesting space because we've seen mobile money where we are the pioneers in Kenya, speaking of M-Pesa, for instance. So what this has done is, Tala being one of the disruptors in the market, there's a few more lenders who've said, well, this concept seems to work. So they've come in and said, let's create an application, let's give out money through mobile. So we are still alive to competition, but of course, as it has been mentioned, we are miles ahead because our strategy is very different, and the way we work with mobile is actually we are way ahead of the competition, I'd say.
All right.
Yes.
How much is the single lending, for example, let's say average of the lenders that you have? How much do they do it? Is it on a daily basis? How much do you lend on a daily basis?
Let me speak in terms of in a month, for instance. So we service over more than 300,000 customers in a month. And this is because of the technology that we have. It means there's no single time that the customer will have to wait. Everything works very quickly. And when it comes to disbursements as well, we're talking about, if I can put a ballpark, tens of millions of dollars in a month, for instance. So, and that's just with the current statistics, but it's growing very rapidly. So there's a lot of room.
Okay.
Yes.
And for individuals, what exactly do they borrow the loan for?
A good question, actually. So as Shivani has mentioned, over 70% borrow for business. So we've categorized that into two. So you have where they're starting a business or growing a business. And when you look at that, you see when someone is borrowing, especially early in the morning, because we've seen a bit of that. So you're talking about 4 in the morning as an example. Then they go into the market, they buy the produce they need, they sell it through the day, they're able to pay us back at the end of the day. Our product is 21 days and 30 days, but you find there are those borrowers who have that need in a day, and it enables them to get the capital they want to use for the day. We also have a lot of people in the service industry. So a customer story that we have, there's this individual who's actually, I think he's 28 years old, who does a bit of software development for his clients. Very basic software. So maybe you want to help customers sign up quickly. And he needed to do that for one of his clients, but he didn't have 5,000 shillings, which he needed. And the client had said he'd pay after the work is done. So we came through where he came to Tala, applied for the 5,000 shillings, was able to do what he needed to do for his customer, and he was very happy. So he had the working capital he needed for his particular business. So we've seen a lot of micro entrepreneurs trusting our platform because of the security it gives them, where no one else has to know that they're borrowing. Well, the kind of questions we ask them to understand why they're borrowing are very quick and easy for them to fill up. And the application, the flow of how, once you download and what you need to do, we've made it very simple to understand.
All right. Your loan limit is up to 50,000. Have you extended it to something else? I'm not sure.
So depending on whether the customer is new or a repeat customer, for the new customers you find, because we give between 1,000 shillings up to 4,000 shillings, a majority will be in the 2,000 shilling mark. And for the repeat borrowers, so those ones will be above the 6,000 shilling mark. So between 6,000 up to 15,000, you find there's quite a number of customers therein, because 95% of our borrowers are repeat borrowers.
Where are we going to see? Shivani said that it's 92%. Is it also the repayment is 92%? Is it also that in Kenya?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And that's hugely because Kenya is the largest market right now. So the others where we're in, your Philippines, the Tanzania, Mexico, are relatively new. So the model that we're using has proved itself. So Kenya may have a high number of customers, but still the other markets are getting very good repaying customers. So as we grow larger, we will be able to segment and say, what else can we do? Because our customers have already started asking for, maybe can we get higher limits? Can we do this with the platform? So we can be able to segment further. But the repayment across the board is at 92, which we're very happy about.
I still don't get the data science of getting to know this person is a good credit worthy, I can lend them more money. How do you go around that?
It all goes back to the same concept that we really believe in, is one, you always have to start with believing in people. So if you believe that people are trustworthy, now it's a matter of using data and technology to prove that potential. And part of that is understanding people's stories. So I'll give you a really fun example, which is the way that your phone book is organized, right? That's potentially a feature that we could bring into our model. So the way your phone book is organized tells us a lot about, are you an organized individual? Are you a business owner? Is English your first language? What kind of device do you have? And we found that customers, in terms of their phone books, if more than 40% of their contacts are actually listed with first and last name, they're actually more likely to be a good borrower. Right? And so it's
That's
actually
very interesting.
right, and it's really interesting because it's something that applies to all of us. It's not something that applies only to the top of the market or the bottom of the market. We can all identify with a variable like that, but it actually tells us a lot about who we are as people. So if I'm organized, I might put a lot of my contacts as first and last name. But let's say I'm, working on a really crappy phone, I don't want to type in every single thing, and so I might actually have a lot of first names. So that's just one example.
Globally, what have you seen as the trends of mobile money lending?
In terms of specifically mobile money lending, we really see that still concentrated, I would say, in East Africa. In terms of digital lending, that is spreading throughout the world. And so we started as the first kind of unsecured digital lender in 2014. And since then, we've seen a lot of competition come in, but it really fuels us to develop even more innovation and better quality products for our customers.
All right. Where do you see the lending going in the next future? Are we going to see, because most of the mobile money lending is only for the people who are unbanked, and there are also SMEs who definitely are looking at getting there. Are we expecting to see the lending going further to the SMEs as well?
Definitely. And I would say that the majority of our customers are really small business owners. And so 70% of people are using it for working capital. And that's, again, using it out of access, but it's actually using it for convenience and affordability because we are so instant. The majority of our customers actually get access to capital in under 5 minutes.
All right.
Yeah.
So what's next for Tala in Kenya?
We actually are making a very deliberate effort to understand our customers more because we have a lot of data from the time we started. So we've been able to see what are the trends, what are they borrowing for, and it leads to, can we make something more customized for them depending on the need? Can we look at, well, this customer usually comes back after every 3 days. Can we anticipate that and say, well, we know this is what you need? And of course, when you look at financial access, choice, and control, if you see customers are borrowing, for instance, for health, because that usually is among the top 10, is there a way we can look at microinsurance, for example? And it doesn't necessarily mean we go and reinvent microinsurance. It means, is there opportunity to work with other partners because we know the customers and what they need? So there's lots to do, but more importantly, lots of user research, because we never do any improvements and say, well, we believe the customer wants this, we get it from them. We do the reverse. They talk to us, they give us all the insights, then we develop something.
All right.
Yeah.
And in general, what is the future of mobile money lending in the country?
Well, we haven't scratched the surface. What I'll say is there's something the president mentioned, and I think he mentioned it last year. He said when it comes to digital financial services, and when you look at financial inclusion, access to credit is just the beginning. It's just one aspect of it. We haven't even maxed it out yet, because if we have 1 million borrowers on our platform, and you have, say for instance, over 25 million Kenyans with mobile money, and if you look at the banking sector who are covering maybe 4 or 5 million, there's a lot of people we need to still access or give access to credit. Then beyond that, what else happens? Because it's not just about credit, it's about the whole ecosystem. So as we continue with what we're doing as Tala, it means going back to the whole digital financial services ecosystem and looking at what other services can we continue building for these customers with the existing partners, whether it's going to be public sector or private sector. There's a lot to do.
All right. Your ambition right now, you're in the Kenyan market. Are you planning to go through East Africa?
So we have a global mission, right? We have 3 billion people around the world that are currently underserved from financial institutions. And so it's not enough for us to be successful only in Kenya. We want to grow throughout East Africa, and we are in Tanzania now. So looking at other markets there. And then we're live in the Philippines as well as Mexico. and then we'll continue to expand across those regions as well.
The last question is, what are the major challenges that you've encountered through the years?
As Tala?
As Tala,
yes.
and as the industry as a whole.
So if I speak specifically, we speak about Kenya, for instance. So I'd say the challenges we faced are, when it comes to our borrowers who are borrowing for business, we don't have a central repository where we can look at business registration. It's not yet fully digital. So if a customer is borrowing and saying, this is my business registration number, it means we have to give them the benefit. We don't ask for that information yet, but if only it was as digital as checking ID, where you can quickly say this is the registration number, you can allow for maybe partnerships, you can allow for multiple borrowers within. So right now the way the system works, we do individual lending, but we can see they are borrowing for business. So that in itself means from the public sector, they need to ensure that the information they have can be accessed in a digital manner, at least from the micro businesses, that's one. Secondly, it's the issue with, we do submit our information to the credit bureaus. So both positive and negative, and we do it because we want the customers to have a credit profile. However, we know how credit bureaus are defined in this country. They are looked at as a blacklist. So much as we're doing it for the benefit of the consumer may be worried that we are probably not doing it in their interest. So that may not be something we may solve as Tala. It means the industry as a whole, financial services industry, needs to come in and say the credit bureau is a central repository for lenders and for borrowers, and it's a good thing, not punishing customers. So we do get a lot of customers panicking when we give them the benefit. They need to be convinced a bit more.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.